Well, good morning, Grace Church. As we are celebrating this frigidly fabulous, is what I'm going to call it, Sunday morning. In the Psalms it says, "This is the day the Lord has made. This is the frigidly fabulous day the Lord has made, and we are doing the best we can to rejoice and be glad in it," right? Yeah. So, hi, I'm Pastor Amanda. It's the new year, and I'm so grateful that we as a church get to begin this new year of being intentional in what it means to be church today and how we are to be followers of Jesus today. For those guests who are joining us online, and a special welcome to you as well as any guests and visitor who are with us this morning. We know that your presence and your just being with us is a gift and a blessing to this congregation. So thank you so much for being in worship with us today. Some announcements. Clearly, most of you having made it in person here know that our parking lot situation has been challenging over this past week, as it has been across the entire city with the snowfall. So a reminder that tomorrow, if you do plan on being at the church, I'm just going to, or if you need to come to church tomorrow, I'm going to actually advise you to postpone that to another day. The parking lot is going to be completely cleared tomorrow, and so if you need to be here at church, just rearrange your schedule so that we can get that parking lot cleared and we can get our spots opened back up again, which would be great. So that's happening tomorrow. The other big news is that next Sunday, we are doing a joint worship service with Spirit of Truth Church, which of course is the church that we share ministry space with. And I hope you are all excited about this, because I am, because next Sunday is Martin Luther King Jr. weekend, and Martin Luther King Jr. Day is that following Monday. But Pastor John will be preaching, and we're going to have us a worship service. We are going to celebrate with our brothers and sisters in Christ, the Spirit of Truth, and afterwards we are going to break bread with them. We are going to have some soup and fellowship afterwards. And we are going to do a mission project together with Spirit of Truth called Undie Sunday. So, Undie Sunday, yep, exactly. And that's exactly what it sounds like. We need underwear. We need socks. Here's why. Shelters around the metro area, the items that they need most, believe it or not, is underwear and socks. People are quick to provide toiletries like shampoo and conditioner and razors and that kind of stuff. But what the residents don't really have access to a lot is underwear and socks. So in your bulletin is a printout as to what is actually needed, because there's a particular size range that is needed, as well as the socks that we're going to be focusing on. So do read this insert and go out, buy some new, right? You wouldn't want to wear used underwear or socks, right? New undies and socks, and what we're going to do is during the communion time, we are going to literally bring that forward as an offering, okay? And then we are going to do something with that at a later date with Spirit of Truth, because the underwear and socks that will be collected that day and for the couple weeks afterwards, we will then donate, and then we will go to the organization called The Drawer, and we will bundle socks and underwear together in individual packages that then get handed to the residents. And that will happen at a later date. But we can't bundle unless we give of those items. So you have 1 week for that offering, and then if you still can't do that, you can't make it next Sunday, you can still technically donate those items. The bin will be in the narthex for the next couple weeks after that, and then we will get that other date of service that we will be doing with Spirit of Truth, where we will be bundling said items together at the drawer. That information will get out to you at a later date. So next Sunday is going to be fantastic. This will be great music. We're going to celebrate Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and the mission and the ministry and the vision of God that he brought to our world, right? So, and we're going to be blessed by Pastor John preaching. And then, of course, as much as we all are sad about this, Christmas is technically over. The 12 days of Christmas have ended. And so all of our Christmas decorations do need to come down. And next Saturday at 10:30, if you can just give like 1 hour of your time to come and just help us take all these decorations down and pack them away so that we can bring them out next year, that would be wonderful. So that said, let us be, oh, one more, I'm sorry, Paige, you have an announcement as well, because this is an exciting one as well. Ed, do we have the microphone?
Thank you. Well, Marilyn is not with us, as you might have noticed, but we do have someone at the piano. Please stand up. This is Mr. Bruce Johnson, who is a very old friend and colleague of mine at Cedar Park Elementary in Apple Valley, opened in 1977. And we were both there, right? And I retired in 06, and you retired a little bit later, I can't remember. But anyway. And Bruce often played for my singing groups at concerts and things like that, or at the holiday sing-along, which is not done anymore in a public school, but in my day it was. And he has kindly stepped in to play the piano and lead us with hymns and so on. And Lynn, actually, you know Lynn. Wait, oh, she's up there. Wait. She is going to do some of the playing too. I'm going to try to get the choir to maybe sing a cappella sometimes, but Bruce is playing for the choir today. So let's give Bruce a hand for being here.
And one more announcement. I know this is an announcement-heavy morning, but as we have not been in person together for about 3 weeks, or 2 weeks now. So as you can see, our digital screen is not up and running this Sunday, but that is because we are in need of someone to take on the ministry of Worship PowerPoint and working with myself and our office administrator. Because the person who has been doing that, Sue Ann Turner, as you know, her physical health is needing her attention right now. And so we have lost the person who has been doing that ministry for many, many years. And so if you are somebody who is interested and feel called that that is a passion of yours to be creative and work in helping lead and guide worship that way, please speak to me afterwards, because until we get a new person, unfortunately, we're gonna let that screen lay to rest, and we're gonna use our bulletins only until that ministry can be resurrected by somebody whose heart is moved in this congregation to step into that space.
And our hymnals. And our hymnals. We'll need to use our hymnals.
Oh yes, and the hymnals, yes. So those of you who are very used to looking at the screen, of course, we're going to just get used to singing out of the hymnals again for this interim time. So thank you. Come, followers of Christ, prepare to hear and praise.
If you please stand for the call of worship. We gather to worship the living water.
Spring up, O well, within our souls.
In our dry and arid places, water of baptism, refresh us.
Stir up inside us, renew us living water.
Burst forth within us.
Overflow, saturate the stagnant areas of our lives. Reconnect us to you, our true source.
Let us remember our baptism and be thankful.
Take us to the waters. Let us renew our baptismal vows of celebration. Amen.
Please turn to hymn number 605, Wash, O God, our sons and daughters, verses 1, 2, and
Spirit is love, accessible to all, giving
I see we have some God's kids here this morning, so if you want to come up and join me up here at the altar, actually. Don't worry, Max, we're buddies. We can do this. There we go. Come up, you can stand next to Max over here. Okay. How are you guys this morning? Are you cold or are you warm?
I'm starting to warm my feet. I was outside.
Yeah, you were helping with the parking. That was hardcore. Thank you so much, Max. Appreciate that. Hey, so do you three know about Harry Potter? Yeah. How many of you are you reading the books? No, not yet. Have you seen the movies? Probably one. Okay, question.
I've seen them, but not paid attention to them.
You've seen them but not paid attention to them like that. That's me most of my life. I see things, but I don't really pay attention. Okay, well then I have a question for you. Even so, you know who Harry Potter is, though, right? Okay, when you see a lightning scar on somebody's forehead for Halloween, you know what? That they are Harry Potter, right? And you know, what else do you know if you see that lightning scar on a kid's head at Halloween and you know they're Harry Potter? Do you know anything about the story then, about what that lightning scar means?
No.
You don't know it? He's a wizard, that's right. That's one thing that it tells us about Harry Potter, yeah. There's some other things, and since you haven't read the books, then I'm totally not gonna give this away. Because yeah, you definitely have to read the books. But you just proved the point about symbols, right? If you see a kid walking around at Halloween with a black robe on and a lightning scar drawn on their forehead, you know that is the symbol. They're Harry Potter, right? Do you know what symbols are then? What are symbols? What?
Something that represents something.
That's right. It's an image or an act that represents something else. Here's the cool thing about being followers of Jesus. We have symbols that we use in church all the time. That light behind you, right? That candle, it's just a candle, right? Or is it? As followers of Jesus, we talk about that candlelight is the Christ candle, which means it's the light of Christ. It symbolizes that the light of God shines in this space and that we get to be the light of God as we carry it out into the world. That's why when you put these candles out and then you take that light and you walk out the door, you are being the symbol of Christ and reminding us that we are the light of Christ that go into the world. Today we're going to talk about the symbol of baptism, and more importantly, water. Is water like one of the most basic things you can think of, right? Because water is kind of core to everything, right?
Water is the key to life.
Water is the key to life, exactly. And so followers of Jesus started realizing, wait a second, there's something that we can do that can remind us, if we use water in a particular way, that it is the symbol of God's life in us, and that we get to live out God's life in the world. You're spot on, Max. That's the symbol of water. And that's how followers of Jesus, we use water. Do you want to take a quick guess as to what it is that we use water for that symbolizes that? What do we do? Do you know? How do we use water here? We drink it. That is true. We drink water. Yep. Is there something we do with maybe for babies sometimes? Baptism. There it is. Yeah.
I was thinking about that, but then I said drinking.
That's okay. Hey, we all need to drink water too. But yeah, baptism is a symbolic act that we do to point to the way that God's life lives and moves and breathes in all of us, and that we get to celebrate that. So today I'm going to preach more about that, but you are going to, I'm not sure, Roy or Laura, what the lesson is today in Sunday school, but we here today are going to remember and reflect on baptism. And don't worry, because you guys are going to have some time to reflect on it as well at some point in your Sunday school class. So, but just know that we as Christians, we do the same thing. We like to take symbols, and we like to use these symbols to talk about how God lives in our lives. And today, all of these people that you see, they're going to get sprinkled with water. Yeah, as a remembrance. So, and if you want to come to me afterwards, I can sprinkle you with some water too and tell you what that means after church, okay? So, fold your hands. Let's say a quick prayer. Dear Jesus, thank you for symbols that make it possible for us to understand your love more real and more deeply. Amen. All right, so you can head on back with Lauren. She's going to take you to the Sunday school room, and you guys are going to continue your spiritual formation. I love kids. I wish we could just have like one big conversation for church, and that would be church. That would just make me so happy. Uh-oh, watch out, I might get some ideas and do that. But we do go into a time of quiet now with God, realizing that silence is God's first language, where we can listen to the ways in which God is present with us, fully, completely, and without judgment. So don't let your mind confuse you for God's presence within you, because our minds will go wherever it wants. God's presence is beyond that.
The gospel reading today is Matthew chapter 3, verses 13 through 17. Then Jesus came from Galilee to John at the Jordan to be baptized by him. John would have prevented him, saying, I need to be baptized by you, and do you come to me? But Jesus answered him, Let it be so now, for it is proper for us in this way to fulfill all righteousness. Then he consented. And when Jesus had been baptized, just as he came up from the water, suddenly the heavens were opened to him, and he saw the Spirit of God descending like a dove and alighting on him. And a voice from heaven said, This is my Son, the Beloved, with whom I am well pleased. The Word of God for the people of God. Thanks be to God.
How many of us in our families, or just even in your own personal life, have rituals? Rituals that have been maybe passed down to you or have been a part of your family tradition for a long time. And you do these rituals because why? Can you name why? How many of these rituals do you do because they're just a ritual you do? You're not actually quite sure why Mom rolls out the dough that way for her pie crust and not some other way. It's just Mom said this is how you do it. This is what you do. There is no deviation from it. It's just you just do it. No questions asked, right? I'm guessing most of us in this room can identify something in our family traditions or systems, or even in our personal lives that we have started and we just do it's just habit. It's just because. The answer is, well, just because. It's the way it's always been done. In other words, it's become more mechanical, right? And on some level, some habits that become mechanical can be healthy. Let's just think about, okay, it's the new year. What is one thing that we do in the new year always, and the commercials that we are barraged with always at the beginning of the new year? Go to the gym, sign up for a new gym membership, start a diet, gotta lose all that weight. And we hear this, right? And listen, there's nothing wrong with creating a habit that is mechanical, that says, I go to the gym on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays because this is good for me, right? Clearly. But I wonder, and I've been thinking about this, because this Sunday in the Christian calendar or the Christian narrative is the day that we're supposed to reflect on the baptism of Jesus. And therefore, not only Jesus' baptism, but therefore our baptism, or if we haven't been baptized, if there are those folks who haven't been baptized, a way to reflect on what would it mean if I wanted to be baptized, right? And that got me into reflecting on my own ministry that I've been a part of, serving and leading and guiding churches for well over a decade. And these rituals, right, these habits that we have as Christians and as churches, and how it seems to be so commonplace to just do them, right, without a lot of intentional reflection as to why is this important. And not only do they become mechanical, but they become expected. And baptism is one of those things that I have realized has become one of those rituals in the church. I've sat with many families where the parents are like, well, Grandma and Grandpa really want my son to be baptized. Well, tell me why Grandma and Grandpa want your son to be baptized. What about you? Why do you want your son to be baptized? Right? And we get into this conversation and it just becomes, well, because it's what you do. We're Christian and that's what you do, right? A mechanical ritual that I wonder if it's lost some of the gusto. The gusto, and therefore, if not just the gusto, the scandal, right? Baptism is scandalous. just like the gospel is scandalous. But it's become so commonplace that it just doesn't quite hold that meaning. We love watching babies be baptized, but then what happens, I've noticed so often that over these years of ministry, right, families come together, they have this child baptized, and then all of a sudden everything disappears. They're no longer around. And the church community isn't asking, why, what happened? Where did this beloved child go? How do we nurture them? How can we reach out to them? Right? It's just, well, we just do baptism because it's what we do. Here's the reason I was reflecting on this. I served a shift at the Minnesota Reconciling booth at the Pride Festival this past summer in Loring Park. I went down there as a representative of Minnesota clergy, and I was there to hand out rainbow peace medallions to every person who walked by the booth. And every time a person walked by the booth and I handed out this peace medallion, I just said, you are a blessing, you are a blessing, you are a blessing. To speak blessing into the lives of people for whom the church has spoken perhaps more hate than blessing, right? And so I was getting these like odd looks, first of all, like, wait, what, you're a minister and you're speaking blessing? You know, the church has done not that for me for most of my life kind of look. But the paradox was the atheist booth was right next to ours. You can't make this up. This was great, you guys. I just thought, God, if you have a sense of humor, this is it, right? So you have this reconciling booth of clergy who are, here on the side of love and the side of trying to be the voice of Jesus to the marginalized, to say Jesus is here, you are beloved, and we are all welcome to the table. And next to us is the atheist booth, and they were thoughtfully, believe it or not, they were thoughtfully inviting and strategically inviting young adults to renounce their baptism. They had a ritual of renouncing their baptism. I want that to land for all of us, because wow, that's a powerful testimony, isn't it? That these young people had either been damaged by the church, right? A church had been given an impression of Christianity that was anything but loving and accepting, and or just had really no tie to any Christian church. It's just that their parents said, we're going to baptize you, and then they never went into a Christian church again. And so for them, it was just like, yeah, this makes sense. Let's just get rid of this, right? I don't know what the reason for every single one of those young adults was, but it was a very powerful witness, let me tell you, to have us standing in this booth, speaking blessing on behalf of Jesus, saying, you are a beloved child of God. Thank you for being a blessing in this world. And over here, you have these young adults who are renouncing that very claim and covenant that the church was supposed to be about in their lives, actively. So baptism, yeah. I wonder as a church, what do we do? What do we do with this ritual that was handed to us in this story where Jesus himself was baptized? And I guess if we step into the role of incarnation, that in that moment, you have in the story God proclaiming God's statement to John, who was baptizing Jesus, and any bystanders who were standing around. God says, this is my beloved Son. This is the manifestation of my love in the world that is going to start here and move out in a fleshly body. We already had the birth story, right? But now we get baptism, this act of John submerging Jesus in water, basic water, a river. And out of that basic water, God transformed that moment into something extraordinary. A witness to all of us and a reminder to all of us that God lives in this fleshly world with us. And there's something deeply scandalous about that. You know? The Messiah who knows the suffering and pain of being human, right? This is the manger as well. So baptism for Jesus wasn't an ending point that just said, well, I do this because in the Jewish tradition, this is what people do. No, this was a whole new thing that was starting to form in this moment, okay? But it was a beginning moment for Jesus' ministry, not an ending moment, not something that just said, okay, well, Jesus, you got dunked and now you're done. Have fun, go live your life. That's not what happened. That was the moment Jesus put the mantle on of his ministry, and he went into the world and he lived that out. And then, in an annoying way, looked at everyone who gathered around him and said, follow me and do the same. So here in the United Methodist Church, as we remember our baptism today, right? We remember Jesus' baptism, but that really is just the starting place for us to embrace the seriousness, the scandalousness of our own baptism and what baptism is supposed to mean. So the United Methodist Church, when we do baptisms, there are these 3 questions that are asked, whether it's to the parents of an infant or whether it's to the actual adult or child who can answer for themselves that is being baptized. The questions follow this order. The questions are, do you acknowledge that you are a recipient? You are the recipient of God's redemption and forgiveness. In other words, God is the one who creates the covenant. God is the one who says, you are beloved. You are a precious child of God. And that is God's doing. We don't get to say that. God says that for us. But then the second part of that is, well, if God is making that claim upon us, that incredible, scandalous, big, beautiful, fluffy, but it's going to challenge us claim, then we're going to have to do something about that. We have to respond to it. And so the second question that's asked of us is, are you going to own that agency? Are you going to actively put your arms around that big, fluffy, challenging call and follow it? And that call is do you actually trust that God trusts you to recognize and resist evil, that you are an agent of resistance in the world, an agent who resists injustice and oppression in whatever forms that they present themselves, and that God gives you that freedom to exhibit grace. God gives us freedom to give grace the way that grace has been given to us by God. In other words, it's like that beautiful mirroring dance. Have you ever seen albatross do their mating dance? It's a beautiful thing. If you haven't, go YouTube it. You'll be amused. But think about baptism this way. Baptism is the moment that God initiates that beautiful dance with us, and we follow God in that dance, and we are absolutely trying to stay in sync with God, okay? And that is a challenge for sure. Something not to be taken lightly, right? And then the third question that's asked during a baptism is, are you going to embrace this identity then? It's been given to you. Are you going to hold on to it? Are you going to trust in God's grace? And are you going to promise to honor and serve him and share with all of God's people God's unconditional love? I think the United Methodist tradition has such a rich understanding of the baptismal vows. It's beautiful. It's a 3-part harmony of God's covenant, our response to God's covenant, and then us fully embodying the identity of being followers of Jesus and saying, we will not take this lightly. And friends, if we really mean that, then I would hope that next summer there is going to be one less young adult getting on their knees, screaming out, I renounce my baptism. Because it's time for the church to be the church, right? That's my hope. That's my hope for us today. Some of you were baptized as infants. You don't remember your baptism, right? I was baptized as an infant. But that's why it's so important we have these moments every year to not just remember if we can, but to actually reclaim it. It doesn't matter if we remember it. Let's reclaim it. Let's reclaim this covenant and take it seriously that God has called us to be agents of healing and unconditional love in the world where young people don't feel the need to scream out, I renounce all of this. Yeah. So let's start. And Bruce, you're going to play for us. We're going to sing verse 1 and verse 4 of You Are Mine, because that's the beginning of the covenant of baptism. Can we remember that God has said You Are Mine? So you're going to turn in the Faith We Sing to number 2218, and we'll sing those two verses. We continue this reclaiming of our baptismal story by this second part of our affirmation of faith. It's the sacred story. We have to remember the story that we're meant to tell. And so we're going to say this together. This is the story God wants to live in our hearts about the way of Jesus, the way of God, the way of the Spirit. We search for meaning of God and our own experience, revealed in those sacred stories which have been passed down to us. We tell them again and again of God the Creator, the Almighty, who made everything that is and saw that it was good. Of Jesus of Nazareth, who in history lived among us, healed the afflicted, taught, suffered, and died. He forgave those who crucified him. In the mystery of the resurrection, he continues to live more profoundly through the ages, the incarnation of love, the Christ. He shows us the way which leads to the reconciliation of all things, saying, whatever you do for the least of these, you do for me. Of the Spirit, the breath, the wind of God, the giver of life, the holy wisdom, who inspires the people of God to cry out for justice for the powerless and the oppressed, to see the presence of God in every created thing, and to respond with love. Of the communion of saints, all the people of God, living, dead, and yet to be born, who are empowered to recognize that they are and always have been brothers and sisters, one family in God. Let us now return to God, that which has always been God's in the first place, God's great abundance in our lives. And so we end our time in worship of reclaiming and remembering our baptism. Oops. Apologize for that, I've been on mute. By speaking this affirmation again, this remembering the way of Jesus that we are called to live. And after we are done saying this, we're going to sing in the United Methodist hymnal 2 times, Spirit of the Living God, because it is the Spirit of the living God that lives and moves in us and carries us out into the world. And as you're singing that, I am going to be sending some spiritual water your way as a remembrance and a reaffirmation of your baptism. But if you haven't been baptized, that's absolutely fine. This water then becomes an invitation to you to really ponder the ways in which God might be moving in your heart to become a part of the movement of Jesus in the world. So let us say, we are reborn in the Spirit, followers of that way shown by Jesus, to love God with our whole being, to love our neighbors as ourselves, to treat others as we would have them treat us, to strive for justice and peace, to have respect and compassion for every person and for the whole of creation, to forgive those who do us harm, and to love one another as Christ has loved us. Remember, you have been baptized in God's love. 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 Remember, baptized in God's love. 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 And now we say a prayer that binds us in community with Christians throughout the world and throughout all time. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. Let us now stand as we are able, because we are going to sing that it is a call into the world to go be the Christians in the world, and they're going to know who we are, not because of the hate we bring, but because of the love that we embody. So rise as you are able. Verse 4. All praise to the Father from whom all things come, and all praise to Christ Jesus, God's only Son, and all praise to the Spirit who makes us one, and they'll know we are Christians by our love, yes, they'll know we are Christians by our love. Now may you go into this world being the Christians that embody the love of a Christ who was baptized in the love of God. May that love carry you into this world today, and may it give you the courage to be the Christians where the world will know we are of love. Amen.